You wanted it, you got it. November 9, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. Okay, go here and read the presentation about the private settlement being championed by Phil Hudok and company. http://themillenniumreport.com/2019/11/bill-of-piece-2020-settlement-offer-current-status-deadline/. Notice that there is a deadline and force implied. Accept this as your relief or go without is the implication, but probate never closes and racketeering threats have no place in a settlement offer related to compensation for capital crimes. When you are done reading their Bill of Peace, read my commentary about it and see why I am not jumping on that boat. Pointers. The United States of America being referenced as the British Territorial Government. The President of the United States is the President of the Municipal United States Government. So nothing in the first 3 pages makes any references whatsoever to the actual government, states, or people of this country. A land patent is a land lease. Land is an international jurisdiction. Land is the earth under the first 6 inches of surface dirt known as the soil. Land patents are used to secure mining leases. They were leasing land in Ohio because at the time, there were high hopes of finding gold in this country the same way that the Spaniards found gold in South America. At the time, Ohio was the frontier on the west of the established colonies and was a territory under the control of the British Territorial United States (DBA), the United States of America. Hence, all this is about the Brits trying to get into Ohio and nose around for gold before Ohio became a state. And why, exactly would anyone here, Americans, want to establish land patents for land that we already own lock, stock, and barrel? We don't owe the Queen anything for patents established when Ohio was a territory. Those patents dissolved upon Ohio becoming a state of the Union. And of what value would such patents be to average Americans, even if there were any argument for leasing back what is already ours from the United States of America? Are we all going to mine for non-existent gold? Next, we find the action of the Congress to pay back the estate of General Nathaniel Greene for a bond he provided the fledgling British Territorial United States government, and for damages incurred, which for some reason you think is a huge discovery and pregnant with meaning, but in fact, this is just one of many, many such housekeeping acts which the Congresses have always indulged to pay back petty debts owed to individuals in their employment. Indemnification is basically a form of sovereign-level insurance. So, they honored their obligation to General Greene's estate and are pointing out that they did so. This amounts to publication of a settlement at law. Next, the same territorial Congress dispenses with debtors' prison penalties for various individuals. At the time, debtors' prison in Britain was a hot topic and its unpopularity was leading to the end of debtors' prison provisions. So the Territorial Congress did away with the provisions, except that deportation could still be imposed on persons found guilty of capital felonies by the Supreme Court of the United States. Notice that the Supreme Court of the United States was, at the time, the Supreme Court of the American Confederation, not the United States Supreme Court. So now we come to the 2016 Act. This is an act issued by the Municipal Government of the United States, releasing natural persons and their families from incarceration imposed under the authority municipal states, territories, possessions, and agencies. As the United States, Inc. had entered bankruptcy in 2015, the release of prisoners was mandated by the bankruptcy. A similar release is going on again, right now. We, the United States of America, have informed the Pope and the Queen that we won't pay them to keep our people incarcerated for regulatory infractions that should never have been applied to them in the first place. This ends the profit motive for prisons for profit. Both the territorial and municipal government corporations are under liquidation. As a result, property that was kept by them illegally is being returned to the victims. This is the result of demand by the priority creditors, us, the United States of America. It wasn't something they just did for fun. Let me explain that the United States took improper possession of our land jurisdiction and held it in trust, so that we were living as tenants in our own country and paying them taxes and fees and tariffs on private property. As the priority creditors, we appeared in 2014 and collapsed those trusts and posted international notice of the same, which prompted this action as part of the liquidation. We do not want or need a patent issued by the United States, which is, again, just a lease agreement benefiting the foreign municipal government at our expense. We, the United States of America, already reissued our sovereign patent on November 4, 2015. So, if you want to lease your land from and leave it in trust with the United States municipal government, you can ask for a land patent from them, or you can seize upon your own sovereign land patent under the authority of the actual American government. Which do you prefer, now that the meaning of this has been explained? This is all very nice for the victims, but you fail to see the actual cause of the action, therefore, fail to grasp why this act exists, and why Americans are not only naturally immune and should have never suffered any such predatory abuse, but also are not limited to any offers made by the guilty municipal and territorial authorities nor to any time frame to opt-in established by them. The victims of these crimes are to be compensated all across the board, and all their natural possessions, both public and private, are to be released to them. A private settlement of these wrongs stops short of settlement of our public interests, and we do not relinquish nor recognize any authority of the municipal government pertaining to our land and our soil. So, as I have said from the beginning, what good is a settlement that you pay for, a patent you already own, or any backhanded excuse given to them to claim that they own your public assets? They not only owe everything that they are offering in this bill to each and every American they have harmed. They owe the return of our public lands and infrastructure. If you accept a private settlement without reference to the public settlement, they will simply roll things over, and though you will get relief as individuals, the country as a whole and your countrymen will suffer and pay for it, and so, incidentally, will you, on the public side. Any true settlement must include both public and private interests and must apply to all Americans whether they come forward or not. This is our birthright, simple and pure. We were born on the land and soil of this country. We are the inheritors of it all, not just victims of crime owed the return of our purloined private holdings. Ever heard the old saying about winning a battle and losing the war? If your country goes down the drain because you forgot your public interests in the white-hot heat to look after your private interests, look at what you lose and what they will never have to repay, because you left it all on the table? There, I have explained it, in detail, and pointed out the historical context and the identities of the players involved. If this is the settlement you are willing to take for your estate, and you are willing to subject yourself and your children to the Queen and the Pope as a natural person instead of as an American owed their good faith service, well, what more can I say to you? We have been holding them feet first to the flames for years now, and so they came up with this as a deal you couldn't refuse if you were a prisoner held in their jails or victimized by their Internal Revenue Service or courts. But ask yourself, why should you, the victim of these crimes, have to give up your public interests in order to get private relief? After all, as an American, you own it all, both public and private. Speaking for myself and those who agree with me, I want all my natural and unalienable rights, all my material interests, all my land and soil, both public and private, returned to me and to the control of the actual American government. I have no reason to trust these charlatans who have only been stopped at the greatest risk and expense after decades of struggle and sacrifice, and I can readily recognize their reasoning and intent with this: get millions of people to sign up and opt in for a private settlement, which then gives them an excuse to claim that you opted out of a public settlement. I want compensation for the harassment I have suffered, the arrests, the losses, the time spent struggling with misdirected employees, the court actions, all of it, as a private settlement. Yes, sure I do. I have suffered like everyone else here. But I also want control of our country's international jurisdiction back in the hands of the American government, and I am not satisfied with any deal that leaves that little detail up for grabs. I am also not content with any deal that provides merely private compensation and fails to return the wealth of our country which has been purloined, the gold and silver that we are owed, the land that we bought and paid for, and all the rest. That's why we are upping the ante. Millions of Americans faced with a fully disclosed choice between a private settlement that leaves their country at the mercy of these vultures and a settlement that is both public and private, which returns our public interests to the American government's control, would opt to say goodbye to any further usurpation by the Queen or the Pope. We owe it to ourselves and our children to hold these villains to account and to recoup all our assets, both public and private. Links to this article and more can be found in the video description box.